I don't have much to say today. I feel kind of guilty for wasting journal number 33, Scottie Pippen's number, on nothingness. The main reason that I feel like I need to make a recording tonight is because I'm going to be doing a little bit of traveling with family. So this seemed like it might be the only opportunity to do this for a little while. Um, there still is a there still is an ability, a desire, an impetus, a requirement to build a framework of understanding that will allow, um, I guess I have to say, allow myself, right? Because this is about myself. I hate saying this is about myself because I want this to be about others, but that's really, we explored that, and it can only really be about others genuinely if it starts with being about myself. And being honest with myself. So this is about myself. This is about devising a way to move through the world um, confidently and capably with right understanding and right action without justification and rationalization of evils, wrongs. Um, it is an attempt to live better, live in a better world, make a better world. There are some truisms that have developed. Um, there is the idea that not much objectively is true about the human experience. Um, that we can reduce our understanding of the world to one of survival, to one of competition, um, procreation, consumption, material existence and reality. We can perceive it as um, dominance, or we can perceive it as reaction to threats. Reality is not, no matter how you frame it, reality is not safe. We can create bubbles of safety, but that is at the expense of those who are not contained within the bubble. Life itself is not safe. We can create psychological respite by dividing the things which we feel are understandable and comfortable from the things that are not understandable and not comfortable, and assuming that most of the time we live in the understandable, comfortable side. But that is simply a mental division between the things we accept and like to think about and the things that we don't accept and don't like to think about. It doesn't necessarily change the fact that all of those things exist as part of reality at the same time. So life is not safe. Life is not certain. Life is not comfortable. However, life can be greatly enjoyable and joyful. And in fact, I believe it is the responsibility of every individual to ensure that their life is joyful and enjoyable. Um, it seems awkward to place the responsibility of living joyfully on an individual, especially having just said that life is a challenge. However, this is sort of the burden that falls to each of us individually because no thinking about the world or complaining about the world can change the fact that there are going to be some things that are good and some things that are bad about all human experience. And those things reflect the reality of being a living creature, a living mortal creature with relationships to other living mortal creatures in a dynamic environment that ebbs and flows. So, um, in that environment, it is appropriate to recognize that there will be wins and there will be losses, and you can control those wins and losses to a degree, But as you do so, you should be aware that this influences, sometimes oppositely, the wins and losses that other people experience. So it is, I believe, good to consider all of human existence and experience when constructing how you choose to live your human experience. Um, and the reason that I believe that it is imperative that we experience life joyfully, um, despite the fact that objectively it cannot be, uh, you know, totally objectively joyful, is because we seek to make things better for others. And if we're going to make things better for others, then we have to take the input that we get and create a better output with it. So that means that for the people that surround us, they will, to some degree, experience secondhand our lived experience through our moods and our reactions and our words and our emotions and our outbursts and our values um, and attitudes. So if you care about the people that surround you, which by nature of human existence and the way that we surround ourselves with other people, you would assume that the people who surround you, the people who you share the most intimate spaces with, are the people that you care about. If you do care about those people, then you want those people to have a greater lived experience if possible. In order to give them a greater lived experience, you should introduce joy into their experience, which means that you must exhibit joy, which means that you must live joy. This has a tendency to create some fake condition of what do we do? We brag about our things, our homes, our jobs, our cars. We brag about our workout routines. We brag about our new clothes and sunglasses. We brag about a great many things in life because we want people to see how good of a life that we're living because we want to introduce that goodness to the world, and we want it to fall back on us again, right? We want to live in an echo chamber of positivity. But um, these things are shallow and material. These these conditions of manufactured artificial joy may end up creating a feeling in the people who surround us of an artificial quality of happiness to life, which means that people can eventually perceive when your joy is just a show. So it's more than just saying I love life and life is great and everything is good. And look at me, look how wonderful everything is. While your actual lived experience is miserable, it is the lived experience that must be joyful and the outward material conditions that can fluctuate. In fact, I think it is imperative to all of us that we necessarily experience and demonstrate the experience of living more joy than is found in the things that we consume or experience. So we manufacture joy. We are the source of joy. I think that is an important quality of life is to introduce positivity. You don't have to do that, but no alternative is preferable, and no alternative creates a better state of being. I'm not saying accept everything and just take what you've got and be grateful for it and don't try to do anything better. I'm saying that as you move forward in life, trying to confront wrongs and introduce rights as you should. You should be always striving to make the world a better place, absolutely, for as many people as you can, in any way that you can, to the best of your understanding of how to do so. And you should always be seeking to increase your understanding of how to do so, lest you go in a direction that greatly, intrudes on somebody else's well-being. Um, but but as you do that, you don't have to suffer, and you should not make your you should not introduce suffering if you don't have to. You should not make suffering a real component of everybody else's reality because if you can if you can experience life positively, if you can live joyfully, uh, you solve some problems, and if you live miserably, then you introduce more problems. This is a challenge, right? Because biochemistry is heavily influences our lived experience, but our perceptions of the world influence the stimuli that influence the biochemistry. We can frame threats and opportunities in our own mind in such a way that we perceive them as threats and opportunities. So we do have some control over this. It has to do with how we shape our understanding of the world. And I believe that you ought to shape your understanding of the world such that you understand that you are the one who's living. You are the one who's living your experience. At any moment, you can take any action. This is an amazing freedom and liberty in your life that at any moment you have ultimate freedom to take any action. You're not free of the consequences of those actions, but you should not convince yourself that you are not free to take actions. You are. You're choosing not to take those actions because you are concerned about the consequences of those actions. And as well, you should be. Some actions have negative consequences for you, and some actions have negative consequences for others that you don't wish on them. So you should, police your own behavior and impulses. But this means that if there is some behavior that could result in a better state of being for yourself or for others, it's within your capacity to do that thing. Um, and often it's difficult to recognize that it's within our capacity to do these things because we feel overwhelmed or we feel a lot of negative feelings and we feel paralyzed by a state of misery or um, uh, what's the word I'm thinking of? I'm not thinking of any word. My mind is suddenly empty. A feeling of overwhelming opposition. But that feeling can be dissipated through action. Always err on the side of action when you know that the outcome is positive for yourself or others. Um, Over time, you may come to understand that some of the actions that you have taken in the past were not as positive for yourself or others as you thought at the time. But that does not mean that you should not be moving out in the best possible direction with all possible energy and force as you can with where you currently are and what you currently know. We can only do what we know. We can only do what we can do. Um, so don't allow uncertainties to paralyze you. Don't allow the immense forces in the world that exist contrary to your will to paralyze you. Do what you can do. And I think that a lot of that philosophy comes from two different things that I've been experiencing recently. One is that my experience with whatever's been going on here has impacted my attitudes and my appearance and the way that my family experiences me. And I don't want that to be a negative experience. I want the experience of me to be a positive one for the people who I care about. I want them to experience me positively, and I want them to have a richer, better life as a result of my being there. Not because I want them to love me more or whatever, but because I want their lived experience to be better, and I can influence them. In addition, this is another part of this is that I am starting to understand that it is through action that we influence the world for the better. Ideology absolutely does um, influence things a great deal. However, there's always the possibility that ideology could slip outside of its intended purpose and cause imbalance and undo the good things that you are trying to do in the circumstances in the context. So there always requires for any good to be introduced, there always requires somebody to be actively working it. And that person actively working it is driven by their own ideologies and philosophies and theologies. And without those things, they probably wouldn't be driven to do the things that they do. But those ideologies and philosophies and theologies on their own are not sufficient. They must drive action, and sometimes in isolation, they can be reconceptualized to drive the wrong action. So, um, ideology, philosophy, theology, very important. More important is its right application, and that is an individual journey and requires an examined life on the behalf of the individual as well as action on behalf of the individual. And understanding that and choosing to live rightly and choosing to execute right action in my life to the best of my understanding and knowledge leads me to the conclusion that, well, I must have some degree of uh, uh, biochemical well-being in order to act, in order to get up off the floor and do something. And the way to kickstart that is to just do. So you can do good things by feeling good, by doing good things, by feeling good, by doing good things. And this has an impact on not only your ability to move through the world, but also the well being of the people in your environment. Prompt the people in your environment to right action, prompt them to joy, prompt them to a feeling of positivity and hope and agency in their own lives, prompt them to right thinking and internal searching, as well as seeking to understand the world around them and act in it. Don't discourage people from trying to do their best and trying to live right and trying to care for others and trying to be empathetic and change the world for the best, but do prompt them to continually examine what that means in the context of the society in which they live, the time in which they live, the people that they influence, the different communities that they intersect with as they try to, live out this idea of what is good in life. Um, yeah, so all of this is it sort of has this feeling of a certain charisma, right? Charisma prompts people to action. Charisma prompts people to a feeling of familiarity, a familial feeling. It prompts people to feel joy about life. It gives people that dopamine hit as you experience that person socially and you experience acting together with those people. So this sort of is a charisma, um, and which can have, you know, dangerous applications, but simply because it's effective. It's good to feel good about things. It's good to act, but you must recognize life as being complex, and you must recognize that it's not simply divided between the things that you can do and the things that you can't do, the things that make you feel good and the things that make you feel bad, the things that help you or the people you care about, and the things that hurt people, you and the people you care about. Life is all of these things at once, and you can just as easily feel overwhelmed and negative and miserable and give up in reaction to what life is, just as easily as you can feel positive and driven. You can recluse yourself just as easily as you can reach out to others. You can you can hurt people just as much as you can heal people. You can um, feel like waking up the next morning and trying again, and you can feel like not wanting to wake up next time. So be cautious that you don't create an oversimplified, fake sense of refuge in one action or another. Just because these are the actions, or these are the beliefs, or these are the utility mechanisms that work for you and allow you to remain engaged and benefiting other people, doesn't mean that they always will be the right answers for other people. People may see good in you. People may feel good being around you, and that's great. Congratulations for influencing the world for the better in your immediate environment. But caution folks against oversimplifying that feeling of goodness to specifically the actions or beliefs that you were exhibiting. You don't need to go back and do that same thing again to experience that dopamine hit. So, GDC, Game Developers Conference, a lot of good people there doing a lot of good things. Always that week is a very high week. That doesn't necessarily mean that the things that we're doing there or the philosophies that we're enjoying there or the particular people that are there are the answer to life. It's just an active engagement and an intentional living to the benefit of others and engaging with the context of the moment. And you can do that always. You can do that in all circumstances, in all cultures, in all societies, at all times. And you won't always come up with the same conclusions. You won't always end up finding that it is the same philosophies that excite you, that guide you, that strengthen you, that encourage you. Um, the important thing is that you navigate this earnestly, looking to the lived experience of others and listening to what they're saying, looking to increase the well-being of humanity, looking to find ways to live joyfully yourself. And speaking of that, it really is an important component. Finding ways to live joyfully yourself. That is to some degree, if not the A storyline, a very close B storyline. Trying to find joy in life. That's kind of why we're here. Um, among other things, it's definitely, if not the first, then the second of the plot points in our lives is to find joy in life, and we seek power, status, fame, wealth, um, possessions, land, clothing, beauty, uh, sex, attraction, um, influence, just a great many things, cars, uh, that ought to bring us joy, right? And none of them really truly do at the end of the day because it's not a matter um, of consuming. Joy is not a matter of consuming. Joy is a state of being. It is an acceptance of life as it is, regardless of what the material conditions are. You either accept life or you reject it. And if you reject it, you can reject it with finality and leave, or you can reject it continually as a sort of, moaning against your own existence. This doesn't benefit you. It doesn't benefit anybody else. Therefore, if you intend to stay in this game and you intend to do something with your life and you intend to help people, then you ought to work on finding joy. And joy is not going to be found in your material conditions. It's going to be found in the way that you experience the world. Um, don't be afraid that your joy will be taken from learning about the way things are. Because if you're honest with yourself and you're earnest in seeking what truth you can about existence, you will find some things that are devastating, and you will find some things that are challenging, and you will find some things that will cause you have to go back to the drawing board over and over and over again. Um, but at the end of the day, you can't escape the fact that it is up to you to choose whether you want to enjoy life. I'm sorry, but you can't escape that choice. You can't escape that choice. You may struggle where you currently are to find a way back to choosing to enjoy life, and that changes. Sometimes we put ourselves in a biochemical bubble. We put ourselves in a place where we have framed our understanding of the world such that reality and truth can only shatter it. We put ourselves in a place where we form certain beliefs about the world that justify our joy, and those beliefs become betrayed, and for a long time we may fail to find joy where we previously had it. Um, that doesn't mean joy is gone. It just means that you need to rebuild your house. Um, if you have your house constructed a certain way with the bedroom facing east, and a storm comes from the east and tears your bedroom off of your house, it doesn't mean sleep is gone. It just means that you need to rebuild. And maybe when you rebuild, the bedroom will be somewhere else and you can rest again. Uh, don't shy away from that responsibility because, again, the the art of philosophy is the living of one's own life, right? So it's your responsibility to put yourself back together. That doesn't mean you don't seek help. You should always seek help. You should always rely on external influence and understanding to help you uh, guide you through some things. You can learn from others' experiences, and others can guide you through your experience based on their experiences. So, always, yes, absolutely seek help. Read and share and talk, and um, if the opportunity presents itself, um, and you are in need, seek professional counseling. um, I always feel a lot uh, better reading. I like being able to go on journeys where I absorb information and grow, and choose for myself where to put it. I like being sort of the master of my own destiny in that kind of way. But there are many times when I need external perspectives, and I am fortunate enough that that I have a great many friends who care about me, and I can reach out to those people and request their perspectives on things and get their influence. And usually that helps. There are a lot of times that I probably would have benefited more from having some sort of formal counseling, but uh, my experience with that probably is one of a previous era. My understanding of counseling is shaped by my religious background, and so I thought of counseling as being a very specific religious thing. And yeah, I understand that, and I can see that for what it is. I don't know how we got on this subject, but all I was trying to say is that there is a way forward. There is a way forward. And so here's the thing: when you put your house back together, when you put yourself back together, and when you find a justification for living and working hard and acting and turning the complexities of life into joy and positivity and action for the people around you that you care about, and when you accept that things are not perfect and that conceiving of a perfect world for the purpose of crafting an ideology and a movement to consume it for your own, um, charismatic leadership is not necessarily to influence the world for the better and put it back together for the better, but rather for your own glory. Uh, you can shoot. That was too long of a sentence, and I lost it. I was going to say you can become a caricature or a character embodying the principles of right living. So before I started this video series, I don't think there could have been a caricature of the particular type of character that I was embodying. But now that I am going on this journey um, publicly, I'm not saying that this will come to anything, but if somebody were living this experience out loud in public in a profound way, that itself would be evidence that right living is possible and right thinking is possible. And it's not tied to any particular person. It's not tied to any particular time. It's not tied to any particular philosophy. It's simply a matter of embracing life in all its complexity, remaining reverent to that complexity because we will never fully grasp it, understanding that hope and fear and terror and trauma and love and kindness and um, ecstasy are all components of a shared experience, and they are relative, and they are not tied specifically to material conditions, but rather to the things that existentially scare us or encourage us relative to what we believe about the world. So, you can have joy, and you can have right action, and you can influence the world around you for the better, and you should always be seeking to find a way to do the most good. Um, that's my belief, is that one of the things that I talked about last time is that as a parent, I'm invested in my child's future. I'm invested in their children's future. I'm invested in the future of any of my descendants through my children, and therefore I'm invested in uh, their communities and their neighborhoods and their nations and the times in which they live, and all of humanity in perpetuity until the end of times. And at the end of times, that is also something that I have to accept responsibility for, is that I put somebody on the planet at that time to experience that. So um, that's my framework for understanding my responsibility to the world. There's certainly plenty of other frameworks for understanding that responsibility, and empathizing with the human condition. But just because it's a large problem doesn't mean it needs a large solution. What it needs is a right solution. It needs somebody to care. It needs somebody to think. It needs somebody to act. It needs somebody to demonstrate that life is good and that living intentionally is possible, and that experiencing joy in life is possible despite all things. Despite all things. Um, I'm thinking about, as I'm saying this, some of the examples of people who I know who live sort of a more shallow existence and insist that life is good because of the demonstrably shallow achievements that they have. Um, Look at my material well being. Therefore, life is good. Look, life can be good because of my material well being. It's almost like they're trying to convince themselves, right? And you can see that. You can see when somebody's trying to convince themselves that life is good. And that creates a certain distaste for life. Like this person, it apparently has made it, but they're still very much faking it. And then you see people in genuine despair, or you experience genuine despair, and you think that this is the truth of life. The truth of life is despair. And sometimes it is. You can't separate ecstasy and despair. They are both components of life. They're both part of the lived experience. But joy is possible, and action is possible, and they are tied together and they feed each other. And I believe it's if I believe it's our moral responsibility. Maybe moral is a weird word to use there, but I believe it's our responsibility to uh, uh, make life better for those to whom we are responsible. You can make your own judgments about to whom you are responsible. I assume that it will be someone to whom you feel responsible. That's an assumption, but I believe that it's our responsibility to make life better for those to whom we are responsible, and to minimize their suffering and maximize their lived joy. And the way to do that is to influence them by living joyfully and experiencing the joy in life, and using that to power action on their behalf to their benefit, and using that action on their behalf to their benefit to inspire us further to enjoy life, which will inspire us further to action. A good circle, virtuous circle there of lived joy and positive action influencing life for other people. Uh, all that being said, be reverent to the continually reverent to the idea that you don't know everything, that life defies understanding and simple explanations, and that you will again fall and skin your knee. It will happen. You will find the mountaintop again, and you will find the valley again, and probably you will find those things because of the way that you've crafted your understanding. You cannot escape crafting and understanding. What I'm doing right now is crafting and understanding, and someday it may be betrayed, and I may feel deeply cut by it. And this new way of thinking may be challenged by defied expectations in a way that brings me right back to the place of thinking that all of life is simply despair and there's no way to move forward. Um, in that moment, I have the responsibility to pick myself up and dust myself off and be there for the people who I care about, to whom I am responsible. Uh, because there's just no other option. Um, there are other options. There are other options. You can call it quits. That's an option. Um, that will introduce despair, I assume. But again, uh, I don't know if you care about that. I don't know if you believe that despair is a real thing. Obviously, if you are considering taking yourself out of the equation, then you probably do believe that despair is a thing because you're experiencing it, right? So you understand that you can confer that experience to others, and that should be of a concern to you. So the other option is to let's see, you can live joyfully, you can not live, or you can live miserably. And living miserably is probably the worst of the options because you are a continual source of despair for others without introducing any material positive change in the world. So I would say of all options, despair, continual, intentional, unhelpable despair is the worst. But live to fight another day, right? Better to despair for 6 months and then eventually turn it into something that can be a continual source of joy and hope and inspiration and positivity and active change for others than to give up. Um, y- Human experience is such that you can only despair so much. You can only despair for so long. You can continue to convince yourself that expressing despair and expressing misery is the right way to defend yourself against the worst that life has to offer. But I would challenge that and say all you're really doing, you're not defending yourself from anything at all. All you're doing is making the people around you pity you and not enjoy experiencing life in your company. Instead, you should focus on trying to make the world better. And you cannot make the world better by just being a continual malcontent. You must take action. That action must be informed by some joy of living, because why try, right? It's been proven that if an animal does not believe that there is a reason to try, they will not experience joy. And if they don't experience joy, they will continue to believe that there's not a reason to try. So if you're worried about that, kickstart it with action. Kickstart it by doing something, moving positively in some direction, even if it's uh, just uh, a physical act and not inspired by any feeling. It's just like going to the gym, right? Sometimes you wake up and you have to, every millisecond, you have to decide again to push and to try and to show up and to stay and to work. But over time, that becomes a self-sustaining process of positive chemical reactions that keep you healthy and keep you happy. And sometimes you just have to fake it. Sometimes you just have to get up and try. And so that is really the message that I want to send right now in this conversation is get up and try. Force yourself to get up and try. Do something. Do something for someone. Uh, uh, for yourself. Do something for yourself. Invest in something. Invest in someone. Invest in something. Invest in your body. Invest in your uh, uh, um, environment, setting. Invest in someone. Invest in a skill. Invest in a whatever it is. Get up and do and go something, um, and appreciate it. Try to look back and see that there has been an outcome, and do it again and do it again and do it again. Sometimes it won't just take on the first try. Um, this is getting kind of abstract. I feel like I'm giving generic positive nothingness advice at this point. Um, Somewhere in what I've said tonight, I think, are some things that are helpful. Again, 2 videos ago, I said I'm at a point now where I'm willing to accept utility beliefs. These are utility beliefs. Um, Life is not a value based experience. Life is. You are alive. There's no good or bad about that. There's no right or wrong about that. Uh, it is, and you can choose what to make of that. And I recommend that if you want to make the best of it, that you um, invest, that you do things, that you act, that you understand that you can take any action, and you take those actions which you think are beneficial to others. Um, if you gripe about things, understand that that is reducing the quality of your life, which is the thing that you have, and you're reducing the quality of the lives of those around you. By all means, understand and seek to understand better the things that are positive and negative in the world. Understand it's complex and it will always defy your understanding, but um, don't shy away from things that are negative. Just try to continue to live positively. You'll fall down, but get back up. Okay, it's a lot of rambling for not having anything to say. These are just the thoughts that are in my head. All right. So moving forward, I have a unique opportunity here. I have an opportunity to live as a white American man, a father and a husband, at an interesting time to be a white American man. And I can exhibit behaviors that will allow people to see what I am, something that it's okay to be. And I'm not saying, that what I am is in any way preferable to any other lived experience. I'm saying that what I am is in no way more challenging than any other lived experience. I can be a reason for people like me to get up in the morning, to participate in society, to care for others, and to not feel despair. And that's very much what I want to do. I want people like me to not feel despair while also not feeling the need to cause others relative despair. Uh, for some reason, we are in a place where it's difficult for white American men to not be one of those things. Either, it seems to be that because of the direction of of society and culture and politics, that pride in a lived experience like mine must only necessarily translate to subjugation of other lived experiences, and that the liberation and celebration of other lived experience must come at the cost of mine. And that's not the case. It is very much to my benefit that everybody on the planet Earth, all of humanity, enjoys life to the greatest degree possible. And if there's anything that I can do in my life, it would be to lift up everyone that I possibly can, in perpetuity, forever, to the maximum degree, is the ultimate goal in my mind. If I could, you know, uh, if I could make everyone on the planet Earth and all of their descendants, um, uh, give them equal agency over their destiny, like I just described, and make them feel comfortable in living that agency and representing themselves and acting in their community and working to the benefit of others and experiencing joy themselves. And that would be the greatest thing that I could accomplish. And it's not a statement of relative um, enjoyment from one human to another. It's a joy that everybody can experience equally. And not only that, but economically or from the perspective of a thriving society, things work best when everybody has equal input and representation and the ability to introduce new ways of thinking. That's what we want. We want people to be able to not only influence their own destinies to the greatest degree possible and live their best lives, but also introduce new concepts and opportunities and improvements for everybody else. We want them to not be obstructed in doing that. Humans are great at coming up with things that benefit humans, and we don't want to obstruct that. And the greatest way to not obstruct that and maximize the enjoyment for societies and for individuals is to ensure um, equal representation, equal rights, equal regard, and a sense of pluralism that everyone has the opportunity to contribute in their own way, with no respect to one person's input or influence over another. So that absolutely is a desired state of being, and I can live as a white American male in the year 2021 in the United States of America, and be happy and joyful about my experience and positive about my hope for the future and my involvement in society while also holding that belief. And it doesn't seem like people who are like me understand that. People who are like me believe that that you have to choose between joy and happiness and thriving in the future and others doing the same, and that's just not the case. So I have the opportunity to live an example of finding joy and right action without regarding myself in any different from anyone else, while living intentionally to bring about a scenario in which everybody has equal representation across the entire globe, across the entire human experience, and still feel the maximum agency and the maximum joy and maximum positivity uh, and will to action as an individual human being, living an examined life and continually being surprised by how life defies my previous understanding. So that is currently what I'm trying to live and embody and embrace and be a caricature of. So who knows what I may become in the future? Who knows what that may mean to anybody else? But as of right now, I have the distinct opportunity to be a symbol of something different, which is greatly exciting to me. So, by all means, I'm going to live this way as loudly as I can until I come to understand why that also is wrong. At which point I will recluse and despair and change and try again. So thank you, everybody, and I look forward to whatever happens next. Take care.